What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Fresh Finance Podcast. My name is Thomas Elms. I've got my co-host here, Kyle Ryan, as always. And today we are going to dive into really just how to improve your credit score with interest rates going the way that they're going and with spending continuing to rise. We really wanted to just put a video together to kind of hit on the impact of your credit score, some real life examples where having a good or bad credit score can affect you, but also some strategies and things to consider in how the credit score is comprised, but also some of the things that you can utilize on a daily basis to increase that credit score to make everything just in general when it comes to borrowing or loaning money a lot easier. Kyle, would love to just get your original take on this concept and this topic in general before we dive in.
Thank you, Thomas. A good credit score can save you tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. It could be a hole that becomes very difficult to get yourself out of, or becomes something you don't think about and you just benefit from it. So being on the latter side of that and benefiting from it is what we want to gear people towards today.
Yeah. And, I think that there's so many different takes out there when it comes to credit cards, credit in general, the borrowing of money. Don't want to name any names, but there's people on both sides of this where people are super pro borrowing. There's people that are super anti borrowing. They want everything paid in cash, or if it's borrowed, that's the sole focus of paying it down. And I think the reality is working with an advisor to figure out truly what that is for you is the most important thing. You don't necessarily need to be in either one of the camps, right? Because I think that you and I, we're right in the middle, right? We're what's best for the client, but also what makes them feel the most comfortable.
Yep.
And I think the other thing to recognize here is what a credit score is, right? Because if you have a bad credit score, it can definitely feel negative. If you got a great credit score, it can definitely feel positive. But the honest adult reality here is your credit score is essentially an evaluation of your credit worthiness or your reputation when it comes to borrowing and paying back money. I think that's just the honest reality, right? Now, everybody's got situations, everybody's got events. I think the big thing to take away here is we've got some things that we're going to illuminate to help explain how the credit score process works, but also how to improve it.
Yeah. It could be such a killer at the end of the day if you have a bad credit score. And it's usually, again, like I said, it's not something you think about when you have a good one. It's just something you pride yourself for. But let's break down what factors impact your credit score, right?
Absolutely.
Starting from the most important. One is your payment history. Do you pay on time?
Yep.
And I'm going to come down. I'm going to list them all, and then I'm going to explain each one. So payment history. One is called credit card use or credit utilization. How much of your credit limit you are using. All right. Next one would be derogatory marks. So if you're not making your payments on time, depending on how late you are, you get what's called a derogatory mark against your credit score, which could severely impact it. The age of your credit score, so how long you have had a credit history impacts it. The number of accounts impacts it. They want to see you have different types of accounts, loans, credit cards, you name it. So the total amount of accounts, and last but not least is hard inquiries. So when you go out and you apply for credit, there's what's called a soft or a hard check. Hard inquiries can negatively impact your credit score. So take it from the top down. What is each of these? Your credit, your payment history. Again, are you paying on time? There's typically a grace period when you make some payments. So sometimes, that'll let you have like 5-10 days late and it won't impact your score. But usually there are varying levels of penalties for not making your payments on time. If you're like 30 or 60 days late, you will have a derogatory mark, which will impact your payment history, which will impact your credit score negatively. It is not as bad as a 90-day late mark. They hit these thresholds, in which case it keeps getting worse. 90 days really what could be damaging to your credit score and can disqualify you from getting certain loans, right? So payment history, it's really important. The most important factor, it's what's considered a high impact factor. Next would be your utilization, right? So have you paid is number one, on time. Number two, are you using your credit? And if so, how much? So let's say I have a credit card and I have a $10,000 line of credit, okay? They want to see certain percentages being utilized versus not. And what do I mean by that? If I have a $10,000 line of credit, If you are under 30% of what you're using, your utilization, that's actually good for your credit score. So if I have $10,000 line of credit and I'm under $3,000 of total of a statement balance, if you will, that's good for my credit score. Even better is being under 10%. Okay. So one of the things that I often get asked is, should I open a credit card? Yeah, sure. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, like, your total number of accounts, it could impact your age of credit history. But at the end of the day, if you're kind of straddling the line of how much credit you use and you need a little bit, if you only have $5,000 of credit, of a credit line, you're using $5,000 of it. If you get another $55,000, it's going to impact your credit score in a positive way.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that, there are different rules of thumb. Absolutely never use credit cards. Oh, go ahead and, take on debt. It's okay. As long every person's different, right? Because if you're the person who opens up a credit card, go, woohoo, I can go shopping. It's not for you. If you're someone who's disciplined and opens up a credit card, it's like, okay, this is in case of an emergency. And if that's the case, I'm going to pay it off right away. Absolutely. Right. So credit card utilization is one of the other biggest factors in it. They don't want to see you using too much of your credit line. And derogatory marks, if you go against the grain in any way, they're not happy about it. They give you a derogatory mark, impacts your score. Credit age. This was really important, especially as it relates to children. Those with student loans, for example.
Yep.
Great way for planning for either your own or your children's or beneficiaries' credit score. Your credit age has a medium impact. The other three factors were high impacts. This is what is a medium impact. They want to see you have a credit age that's not 1 or 2 years old. They want to see you have years and years of a history of paying on time. So credit age is really important because, when you get a student loan, for me personally, that's my longest standing credit. It's really backwards. This is the most backwards thing about our credit score system in the US, right, wrong, or indifferent. When you go off and you pay your student loans, and if they are your longest lasting line of credit, it could actually negatively impact you by paying off a debt, which blows people's mind. Oh my God, I just paid off this debt. Well, yeah, you just got rid of your longest aged debt.
Exactly.
Your lower age, which now brings down your credit score.
Yep.
Good thing to understand there. Total number of accounts. It's actually, when I first learned this, I thought it was a little backwards. They want to see you have more accounts than less.
Yeah.
A credit card and a car loan, they'd be happy. I'm not taking on debt. No, they want to see that you have the ability to take on debt, different kinds of debt, and still pay it. So they want to see different types of loans. They want to see credit cards. They want to see whether it's a car, house loan, anything on your credit. They actually want to see a variety of it. And last but not least, or like I mentioned earlier, hard inquiries. When you go and you buy a house, you get a mortgage, you go get approved for a personal loan. Hard inquiries, that is a hard inquiry. It's really important to plan for because you don't want too many in a given year. A few of them won't hurt you that bad. But it's just something to be aware of. Don't take on too many hard inquiries in a given year.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you can do one hard inquiry for every 6 months.
Okay.
And it won't affect your credit score technically.
Yep.
So just something to recognize there. But, it's so interesting, especially on the number of accounts. I think that's really unique because I think that we could kind of throw our paranoid, hat on or our conspiracy theory hat on the fact that it's kind of like a system and, emphasizing or creating this need to go leverage yourself in all these different areas. But I do understand the reason why. And it's, if you own a home and you're paying off that loan, if you own a car and you're paying off that note, if you're utilizing credit cards and you're paying off that note, it's just essentially a function of discipline and the fact that you're leveraging the system, right? You're getting leverage of money that you don't have to pay for something. And then you're paying off that debt in a consistent manner. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think the other thing to recognize as well is, on the utilization, one of the things that I work with people a lot is taking a look at your credit limits every once in a while, like every 12 to 14 months at the most, to be completely honest, at the longest, because especially as a younger person, as your income goes up and your credit score gets better, you can normally qualify for higher limits. And the higher the limit, it doesn't necessarily, like you said, mean that you can just keep spending more money. It just means that you can decrease your utilization rate. That's just going to make your life better. It also, from an emergency perspective, provides a lot of value because you might not have $50,000 in your bank account, but if for some crazy emergency reason that you needed 50,000, you've got that credit limit there that's available. Now, this is something you just need to be very careful with. This is kind of like a last stake, absolutely need it. That's a place that we can go. and also on the inquiries, I think you made a really great point in the fact that they're timed out and they're of varying degrees of impact, right? Between, 5 to 10 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. And that's where, if you've ever watched a movie that has anything to do with that, actually one that reminds me is the Will Smith movie, Pursuit of Happiness, where he's got like all these bills in the apartment. It's like 60, 90-day delinquent. And that was kind of like one of the first times I've seen that. But, I'd love to kind of hear you transition and talk about, some of like the real life situations of where a credit score, would come into impact. Like talk about where we're at with rates right now and how a good or a bad credit score could affect something like that on like purchasing a home.
Yeah, purchasing a home, purchasing a car, when you go get a new credit card, they're all going to have, and mortgages are less so this, but it's very important. Because you're going to get, if you go to a mortgage broker and they give you a rate, they're just going to give you the one rate. They're not going to give you a range because they already did the hard inquiry. But if you go look at a regular credit card, it's going to have a range, say 20 to 27% APY, right? Or APR. So it's going to charge you in that range. And how do you determine where you are in that range is ding, ding, based on your credit score.
Yep.
Which is again why if carrying debt can be a healthy thing. Now, credit card debt, I will never advertise that credit card debt's a good thing, but say an auto loan, right? It could be the difference of 4 to 5% over the 5-year loan period of whatever your car is. A mortgage could be the difference of 7 to 8% right now, which over a 30-year time span, not, ignoring the idea of refinancing, but that could add up to tens and tens of thousands of dollars of extra interest that you're paying. So in real world examples, it very much impacts the cost of lending for you or taking on, borrowing, I should say. Now, one thing that I would say as a real world example, because I've seen this, is if you are applying for a loan of any sort, if you're getting a car loan, I see this more often with mortgages. Okay. You're going through the process of applying for a mortgage. Do not, until you are done with the process and have a mortgage in your hands and the keys in your hands, do not go out applying for a new line of credit. Don't go applying for a new loan. Don't go doing anything because
new cars.
New car. That's where I see it all the time. Oh, I want a house. I want a new car. And in the process of getting a new house, I get a new car because, and we've covered this in past episodes, but there's what's called the debt to income ratio. Not only is your credit score impacted, your ability to buy a home and finance purchasing a home, but so does your debt to income ratio, and that could negatively impact your ability to get a mortgage.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's just like a component that a lot of people don't necessarily think about, but, working with a mortgage broker, a real estate agent, or a financial advisor, these are great things that you can kind of prep for and recognize and kind of see over the horizon to prevent any bad things from happening, because these transactions are normally very large and, the conceptualization of a normal person. And you don't want to see any of these hoops not getting jumped through or having to get jumped through one more time just because somebody didn't necessarily know that was something that might affect, the credit score or the ability for them to get a loan.
At the end of the day, and sometimes I see people consolidating their credit cards, which there's no issue with that. So they will close out some credit cards. Well, don't close your oldest one.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you're not using it, just hang on. It's got the credit age for you, right? You don't want to, leave it out there in the ether for someone to take advantage of from a security perspective, but there's no advantage to closing it if you're not going to use it anyway. Yeah. One other thing I come and talk to people who might be in credit card trouble, in debt. One thing you could always do is, going back to the credit utilization, right? Say you owe $10,000 of your $10,000 limited credit card bills, and you own a home. There are ways that you can either get a personal loan and pay them off. You can get a home equity line of credit, home equity loan, you can pay it off. What happens is FICO is looking at your credit card utilization. So if you use a personal loan or a home equity line of credit and pay it off, that's going to significantly improve your credit score because they're looking at your credit card. They're not looking at the balance of your personal loan or your HELOC against your credit score. So it could be a really advantageous way to improve your credit score by moving this debt, which is a higher interest rate, over to a new debt with ideally a lower interest rate.
Yep.
Another way of doing it, which I'm a huge fan of, is a balance transfer card. So some people, they get the offer every now and then you get in the mail, 0% interest for 12 to 18 months. And if you have credit card debt, it might cost you $100 to do the balance transfer itself. But the amount of money you save in interest over a year, if you have, X amount of thousands of dollars going from 25% to 0% interest in a given year, that pays for itself sometimes. Yep. So definitely worth doing the math on that because I've seen that impact people positively.
Yeah. And I think the reality is, we're ultimately saying that carrying credit card debt is not a good thing. It's not something you want to search for. You always want to try and be in a place financially where you're paying off your debts, every month, from a credit card perspective. But at the same time, if you're in that position and you're trying to get out of it, these are some good things to recognize for sure. What else? Is there anything else, on the credit card side?
Just one thing, every now and then check the credit bureaus, whether you use a website or something, I won't name any, to go out and check your credit score, or you just go straight to the three credit reporting agencies. Do it every 6 months or something like that, because it is incumbent upon you that if there is a discrepancy or a delinquency and you disagree with it, it is a contingent upon you to dispute that. Otherwise, they're just going to sit there and put it into credit, into collection, if you will. That is not what you want if it's, inaccurate. One other thing, I've got a personal story real quick to end it. I closed out a credit card that had a balance on it, paid it off in full, closed it. It was actually an Apple card, and I was changing my Apple ID because I got a new phone. So I closed the credit card. They charged interest for that month, but I had closed it. The next month, they charged interest to a closed card. I didn't find out for 6 months. Great. 6 months later, I find out because I'm going to apply for something else with credit, and they're like, "Hey, you got this, derogatory mark." Well, look, if you ever the lesson of the story is if you ever close out a credit card, you pay it off and you go to close it out, just be aware of whether or not they're going to charge you interest the following month on your previous balance.
Yeah.
Taken care of, because otherwise you're going to end up like old Kyle here and have a nice little delinquency for something silly. It was like a $20 interest charge. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. And I think everybody just gets so busy with life. It's like your credit score is such a back burner item for most people. That's just the honest reality. I mean, I'll tell you, I normally don't even check mine, like check mine on a 6 month basis. I've got an app that just kind of keeps it in the background for me, so I can just kind of, I just see it, which is, another opportunity for you to, kind of sync those things up. But it's so good to have an advisor, because this is something that I talk about frequently, and it's something that I can just bring to somebody's, front hand point of view. And they'd be like, you know what? I haven't looked at that in 2 years. Holy crap. We should double check on that. And I think that's something that's super positive in somebody's life.
Plan on your kid, impacting your children's credit score when they're of age. If they're in high school, they go out and get a car, get them a credit card, put the gas in it, pay it off yourself. It doesn't matter, but put credit in their name. It's going to start the age. It's going to begin to build credit history, and it can have such positive impact in a short amount of time.
Yeah. And, one last thing, and this one's sometimes a little bit controversial, but I did this one and it was great for me, is as a parent, you can also be a co-signer on a child's credit card. And you then have the ability to the child then has the ability to inherit their parents' credit after 9 months of use, which is very interesting. So that's what I did in high school. I was a high schooler with a 700 plus credit score. And I really did nothing but, like you said, which is, put some food and some gas on a card each month. And then, my parents helped me pay it off, because I was too young to be, working or have a job that paid enough for me to, officially pay all those things off. But, it's something really to take a look at, because this can provide a huge leg up for that child and inheriting that credit, and then no longer using that card once they're an adult, just kind of keeping it in the background. That, I would say is pretty low risk. So something to also consider as well.
Yep. Well, I got nothing else on this. We covered pretty quick, but just, good information to have about credit scores. It does impact everyday lending costs for every day, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's the system we're built on. So it's, knowledge is power.
Yeah. And just being disciplined and consistent in your debt payments. That's just the honest reality. So thank you to everybody that's watching and listening. Really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to the next episode. Thanks so much.